What's up, everyone? Welcome back to a new episode. As always, thank you so much for watching the video. The preview did great. It was awesome hearing you guys throw out your predictions, wanting to see all the things you wanted to see out of the team. I think it's fair to say Oklahoma had a pretty good game yesterday against Kansas State. We finally got a win over them after 3 seasons, so we're moving in the right direction, going into Red River undefeated. So ideal situation here for the Sooners, but let's get into a little bit of a recap of what happened yesterday. So the Sooners ended up winning 30, 37 to 31. I believe that the score makes it seem like it was a lot closer than it really was. But what did you see out of the game, Brum?
Yeah, it does. I mean, 6 points. I definitely felt like it was a little bit more of a wider margin. Um, it felt like it was one of those deals where we'd feel like you put away the team or put away Kansas State, and then they just hang around and come right back. And I really think that's coming back to it's just this Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch are having a hard time getting the team to play a full 60 minutes. And I don't know what the issue was because that kickoff return, that's jumping way ahead, but that one drove me insane. And because, for that touchdown, shouldn't have even happened if Hayes didn't get that unnecessary roughness because it would have probably been a touchback. But I just think the biggest takeaway I had it was the offensive line. It just, they looked all right at some points, but then there were just some block or missed assignments where they weren't even touching some of the defenders, and Rattler got hit a couple times, and it's just I don't know if it's just too complicated, if Rame isn't able to get all the calls and he's just showing that he's really young, or what the problem is, but it just feels like that there's a lack of communication. And for whatever reason, they haven't quite figured it out. They've started to look a little bit better. Don't get me wrong. The penalties are ridiculous. But I mean, I think they had like 7 penalties on the offensive line, and it cost them like 60 yards or something. I think it's like seven offensive lineman penalties and in the game. And it's just, I mean, it was false starts, it was holdings, and Hayes and Robinson really struggled as far as in that environment and making good decisions. But Lincoln Riley, he recognized the deficiency on the team and, started getting Rattler out of the pocket, getting him on the move, protecting him a little bit and encouraging Spencer to run the ball because the offensive line is not giving him a whole lot of time. Most of the time he drops back. And if no one's open, go pick up 5, 6, 7 yards. I mean, Rattler's not Kyler Murray, but he's definitely not, really, really slow. So it seems like that they're starting to adjust, and they're looking okay going into Red River, but not that Texas has looked fantastic either. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you definitely hit it right on the offensive line. There's still definitely some things that they can work on. I still think that there's a lot of issues with the guard position. I don't know what it is. They are just missing some assignments here and there, but they definitely looked better this week compared to weeks past. I think the biggest difference and what made it easier on them was one, Spencer actually running the ball a little bit more, taking those opportunities when nothing is open down the field. He just took off and made plays with his legs. So that's a plus. And then two, the running game was actually established. Kennedy Brooks had a good game. If you guys watched our preview, Brandon and I talked about how Kennedy Brooks needed to be given the opportunity to be the feature back for the Sooners, and he was given that opportunity and he took full advantage of it. He had 15 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown. For me, I think it's KB, Kennedy Brooks. I think he'll have over 100 yards rushing this week, maybe about 30 yards on through the air, and hopefully a touchdown or two down. Compared to Eric Gray this week, only had 4 carries for 22 yards. Now Eric Gray was involved a little bit more in the passing game, but I think at the end of the day, Kennedy Brooks was a pivotal part of actually getting the running game going. And obviously, Jeremiah Hall had a good game as well. I believe he had 2 touchdowns, if I recall correctly. So, pretty good game out of the backfield there for Oklahoma. And I mean, the biggest thing with at least with pass plays, and especially when Eric Gray's in. And early in the game, I think it was with like 10 or 8 minutes left in the first quarter, Eric Gray was in for a play, and it was I don't know if it was a designed screen pass or if it just happened to be Spencer took the dump off to Gray, but Gray just let the corner blow by him. Didn't touch him, didn't like try to chip him off his path. Gray went around the defender, pretty much gave him a free shot at Spencer, and Spencer was just quick enough to recognize what was happening. So I think there's still some improvement there in regards to getting the backs to pass protect, but definitely looked a lot better. Spencer did have one knucklehead play, obviously with the turnover, with the he threw his interception, but got to live with it. He is a guy that's going to take a little bit more risk than the quarterbacks we've had in the past. So hopefully that stuff just gets cleaned up as we move forward in the season, and I think it will. It's just going to be a matter of making sure we don't make those plays in pivotal situations, especially next week against Texas. It's going to be a big game. It's always closer than it should be, and I think this week is going to be either a defensive battle or a shootout. There's not going to be an in between, in my opinion. And obviously, if we do make it to the playoffs, we can't have Spencer make those mistakes against teams like a Georgia or Alabama or whoever the fourth team would be. It seems like those just Alabama and Georgia have kind of separated themselves from the pack as of right now.
Yeah. And I will say that one interception I can live with because it was 3rd and 10 or 3rd and long, and he threw the pick, but they were down within their own 10. So in that scenario, I'm not totally upset. It's an improvement. But I mean, he did complete 88% of his passes. I mean, which is, Baker had a 95% pass, completion percentage one year, I think 2017. But he is not the problem. And it's become very evident that it's been the offensive line. And, historically, it seems like, Coach B's offensive lines do get better as the season goes on. Now we are next weekend, Red River, we're halfway through the regular season. At some point, we're going to have to make the big jump. And I think I would think that the Texas game would be something that they could make that jump for. I mean, there's no reason why they wouldn't get up for that game. They're all going to be excited. They should all be prepared for this game. I'm really thinking that this weekend they're going to put it all together, at least on the offensive line and the offense, because Mims started getting going. Mike Woods finally caught a touchdown. Like you said, Brooks, he almost had 100 yards. I feel like, on the road in a hostile environment, we got to remember that this is the first true road game that Rattler has ever played in at the college level. I mean, obviously he's been to a few away games, behind Jalen Hurts, but, I don't count that. But, 2 years, that was his very first road game. And basically he's a freshman in that environment. Handled it extremely well. I mean, there was a lot of ups and downs, and the momentum was kind of, there were some swings in that game. But I felt like when the Sooners went up, or what was it, 10-10, and then they drove down and they got a field goal right before half, and then they got the touchdown to open the third quarter. It was 20-10, and then they got a stop and scored again 27-10. At that point, I started feeling like I was feeling that if we could get one more stop and go score again, this game's over.
Yeah.
But it just seems like when we've got our foot on someone's throat, we just can't finish it. And we let them score. And then, it's 27-17. And it's just, and K-State's just one of those teams that just keeps coming and coming and coming, and they don't stop. I mean, the defense, my biggest pet peeve with the defense was I felt like Deuce Vaughn, which he's been a thorn in our side. I mean, he's like a little Darren Sproles. I just felt like no one was on him ever. It was just run out in the flat, and whenever you get space, you can't tackle him because unless you have two guys around him, he's just so fast and little. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And I know Grinch made a comment after the game. He said, someone was responsible for the running back, but on national television, for whatever reason, we just weren't covering him, and everyone saw it. It's just, I don't understand that. I mean, do you agree with me or
Yeah,
what?
I think moving to the defense, we did well against him running. He only had 51 yards on the ground on 15 attempts. Where he killed us was in the passing game, where he had 100 yards on 10 catches. And it was always just little dump offs where Skylar didn't have anywhere to go down the field. And, our linebackers were way off. And then he obviously, like you said, with space, this dude was able to do a lot with when he had the opportunity. And that did kill us. Now, is Deuce Vaughn probably one of the best weapons out of the backfield? Yes, but I think we could have done a little bit better to contain him, especially in the passing game, because our defensive line did their job in not letting him get any big runs. But like you said, our linebacker just for some reason couldn't get him down when they had the opportunity. Um, Someone I saw when I mentioned in the last video during our preview was, Brian Osmo was probably going to get the assignment on Deuce Vaughn, and it seemed like he was one of the main guys that was assigned to him when he was out on the field. But this dude was just making Brian miss every single time, it seemed like. And obviously we can't have that happen, but I think this is a talent that's going to be hard to play against, and it's not someone that we're going to see regularly, or someone of that caliber we're not going to see regularly. So while it was frustrating to watch, I don't think it's too big of a hole in our defense right now, because we were able to contain them in the run game. Ultimately, they didn't really have that great of a game, 100 yards as a team. Their biggest weapon on the ground was Joe Irvin, but he only had 7 carries for 33 yards. The only reason he was better was because he averaged almost 5 yards a carry. But other than that, like, if we would have contained Deuce Vaughn in the passing game, this game would be a much bigger margin of victory. And two, something to mention, going back to the offense for a second, we scored on every possession in the first half and almost every possession in the second half. So if Kansas State wasn't a team that was going for it on third, or wasn't going for it on fourth down almost every single drive, we probably could have won by a lot more, because the offense was rolling. They were doing their job and getting down the field, at least getting in the red zone or close enough to where Gabe could hit a field goal. And I think that's all we can ask for at this point. I feel like the national media has kind of exhausted it, but Oklahoma fans have kind of been spoiled with amazing quarterback play over the last 4 years, 5 years. So this really isn't a bad offense. It's just not what we're used to.
Yeah. No, I agree. And talking about the offense, I didn't mean to get off on a tangent with the defense just yet, which we will get to. It's just Deuce Vaughn. It just was driving me nuts to watch. But with Rattler, and you talked about scoring every possession or almost every possession. I think it was the drive coming out of half. It was either the one coming out of half or the second one. Well, actually both of them. Both touchdowns in the second half. Rattler looked really comfortable and looked really good. Mm-hmm. And I would argue that those were the two best drives of the season. I'm not going to count Western Carolina. I mean, that's, that they could just throw the ball 50 yards and score every single time. But those two drives to me were like the two best that Rattler had looked all season long. And what's also interesting is Kansas State, Nebraska, they both played the same type of way, and West Virginia. I almost forgot West Virginia. It was play the soft zone and keep everything in front, rally to the ball carrier or whatever receiver, and keep everything in front of you. And then on offense, it was just run the ball, eat the clock, melt it away. I mean, OU got 3 possessions in the first half. That is insane to think about. But then you think about, well, they scored all 3 times, 2 field goals and a touchdown. So it's just that defense just has to get off the field. And like you said, they went for it on fourth down quite a few times. I think it was 5 times. They went for it 5 times. They went 4 for 5 on fourth down. And there were multiple times that they should have been off the field, but just because of the game plan in Kansas State, they were 4th and 2, 4th and 3. and it was pretty easy for them. Now the OU did also give up. I felt like it was a handful, 3, 4, like 3rd and 10 or longer plays too. And that's another thing that I don't understand is why do we? It seems like we're really aggressive 1st and 2nd down, and then we just try to play this soft zone on 3rd down, and then we can't make open field tackles, and they get at the 1st down. I don't know if it's a scheme issue, a tackling issue, something, but I mean, the formula is out there that teams are trying to beat OU with. Run the ball, eat the clock, limit possessions, don't turn the ball over, and just play good defense and keep everything in front of you. Just don't get beat over the top. And it's been working. I mean, has been working enough because they're not been good enough teams to beat OU just based on a talent level. But I'm just worried, Texas, they can run the ball. They've got Bijan Robinson, arguably one of the best backs in the country, if not the best. I just think that's one area of concern I have is just getting off the field on 3rd and 4th downs. 4 for 5 on 4th downs is a area of concern in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And let's go ahead and shift over to the defense because I think you made a lot of good points. Like whatever it is, the scheme, the mentality maybe that we come into with playing hard on 1st and 2nd and just kind of getting a little soft on 3rd down, expecting to just come off the field after that. Because obviously when most defenses get a stop on 3rd down, you're going to come off the field. But against Kansas State, it just wasn't happening. And I think maybe it kind of hit the defense, kind of in the ego a little bit or maybe they were just tired. I don't know, but definitely something was going on there. I think the biggest thing is with our DBs, we're really starting to notice how big of an impact Woody Washington could be once he's back, because Davis did a good job, but I think Woody could have done much better than he did. I remember one play specifically. I think it was on 3rd down. It must have been 3rd and long. But the wide receiver pretty much turned Davis around. Like Davis was on a spin cycle when he could have just shifted his hips and kept the receiver in front of him and potentially at least gotten the pass broken up. I don't think he would, maybe even a pick, who knows. But we also, talking about picks, we did leave give them a lot of opportunities because of dropped interceptions. And obviously those are going to happen, but with as many opportunities as this defense had to get at least one pick, you just can't have it happen. And that's something I'm sure Grinch probably addressed. I know I saw some reports as the defense was going into the locker room at the end of the game. He was not happy with how those DBs played, especially with dropping those interceptions that some of them were just gimmies, and I don't know, maybe they weren't expecting the ball to be in that spot, but hopefully they can figure it out. I think next week, the biggest test is going to be containing the run game, but I'm pretty confident with this defensive line and the unit. Their performances have been great. So as long as we can contain Bijan, I don't think we're going to see another Deuce Vaughn like back. And Bijan's very talented. I haven't seen a lot of film on him yet, but Deuce is just a shifty guy. I mean, he was compared to Darren Sproles. Obviously, they both went to Kansas State, but they literally have almost similar games. It seems like just small, shifty, and can just get by you because obviously their size kind of helps them out because there's a lot less of them to tackle. But yeah, that guy was very talented, and I'm excited that we're not having to see him again. Hopefully, we don't see him in the Big 12 championship because that could be a frustrating game to watch.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're going to be seeing Kansas State in the Big 12 championship again this season. Now, I will say, as far as, big takeaways from this game is I did like seeing Lincoln Riley get after Hayes at the end of the game, or what was it, on the extra point, I believe it happened, where Hayes got the unnecessary roughness, and it cost him 15 yards. And then that led to the kickoff return for a touchdown. I finally am starting to see, I feel like I'm starting to see Lincoln Riley really get after him, and not, I think that's what makes coaches great, is the ability to not only be creative, but also discipline. And I feel like sometimes I question how hard Lincoln Riley actually disciplines, because I know he's a player's coach and I get it. And you want to be their friends, but I felt like finally I saw him really kind of rip into someone. And another guy, I mean, Grinch, with their comments after the game, I feel like this is the final step that the team has to take as far as being more disciplined. The penalties under Lincoln Riley, and this is not only this year, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the number of penalties and the penalty yardage has gone up on just boneheaded plays. The unnecessary roughnesses, obviously with Bookie over the last few years, and then you've just got dumb plays where I just don't understand. I get the emotion of the game and whatnot, but just situational football, I just think that has to get cleaned up. And once that gets cleaned up, the offensive line gets cleaned up, the team is really, really good. And I think that's the most frustrating part about this is the team right now, I feel like is kind of sleepwalking. They're just going through the motions like, it is what it is. We're going to make it through. We're the best team in the league. So everyone should be, bend the knee as they play us and don't worry about it. Texas won't lay down, and Texas is going to come right and punch us right in the mouth if we're not careful. So I don't know. I just feel like I love seeing that Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch are getting after the players, holding them accountable. It's just, what do you do? I feel like I would have pulled Robinson or Hayes at some point in the game. I mean, not that the offensive line was great. I mean, you could have gotten Wanya Morrison. I know he did play some, but I would have pulled, one of them, sat him down for a little bit. I mean, just like what he did with Rattler. Just the false starts and the unnecessary roughness is just, I don't know. But then again, I got to remember, this is the first true road game that OU's played in 2 years. There's something to be said about that. So,
yeah,
and
to think back just with the offensive line, we've always had one guy that just loves to make mistakes when they shouldn't, and boneheaded little plays and that get us in trouble. I think the guy that I just vividly remember was Cody Ford, was always trying to fight someone in situations where literally it didn't matter, dude. Like, just move on. You're costing us 10 or 15 yards because you're getting frustrated at something that doesn't matter anywhere past that exact moment. But hopefully they do get it figured out. I mean, Cody Ford obviously went on to get drafted. That, these guys are equally as talented as him. But so I think for me, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter say the same thing about the offensive line as you just mentioned, maybe doing, couple changes, not doing a whole shift, but maybe like plucking one out and inserting a different guy in, either for discipline or just to see if they'd be a little better. I think that at this point, we're in the point of the season. I mean, we're almost halfway through the season, right? Where these are the guys we're probably going to see for the rest of the year. Like, and we should just let it be. Like, let's just be frustrated because they're not figuring it out, rather than let's go do a whole nother shift. Because one, it's not going to help. Like, if the issue is communicating, throwing in two new guys every week or every time someone makes a mistake is not going to help, because that communication is key with Rame making the calls, or pointing out assignments, stuff like that. So hopefully those mistakes kind of go away as we get through the season, and I think the communication will be better, because like you said, not only was this our first game, but this was also Rame's second start of his career. Like, we're moving on. This unit in itself is really extremely new. And we had Ely leave for the draft. Creed, obviously he was a pivotal part of the offensive line. He left for the draft. So two big pieces there that left, and these guys just kind of have to figure it out as a new unit. It's not going to be the offensive line that Baker Mayfield had, because those guys, I mean, they're the best offensive line in the country. So hopefully next week against Texas, they have better chance. It was promising to see that after like the first quarter, we stopped with all these 8-man protections. Like, that was the most frustrating thing that the broadcast pointed out, Like we were always one of the issues and why we weren't having big plays is because we kept having 8-man protections and we only had on like 3 or 4 man rushes. So then we had 3 receivers out there versus 7 or 8, and obviously no one's going to be open. So Spencer had to make some ridiculous throw and try to play hero ball, and that's not Spencer's fault. I think just as the game went on this time, we started to gain trust in the offensive line. We said, hey, we can't keep trying to cover your mistakes because our offense can't develop if we have to keep putting 2 tight ends in, or 2 tight ends and leaving the running back there to protect. Like, you guys have to do your job, figure it out. These are 3-man rushes. You should be able to contain it easily by yourself. And if you can't pick up the blitz every once in a while, we got to live with it. Spencer is mobile enough, like you said. He's not Kyler Murray, but he can move in the pocket and get out and make a play with his legs if necessary. Like, you guys are talented enough, and I think that's what we saw in this game. As we got through the game, we didn't see 8-man protections very much. We were able to move down the field, and it started rolling. So I think next week is going to be good. Hopefully, really my biggest concern is containing Bijan, but we'll touch on Texas in the next video. Biggest takeaways are for sure Kennedy. He has to continue doing what he's doing and being given that opportunity, because if the coaches go back and try to push Eric Gray onto this offense, that dude, I don't know if he can't or is unwilling to pass protect, but he's just not that good at it. Comparing him to Kennedy, at least. And 2, Kennedy's just better at being patient and finding the hole to at least gain a yard or 2 when he's in trouble. Because there was times where Kennedy you would see swarms of Kansas State players around him trying to get him down, and he somehow was able to stay on his feet and gain, that 2 or 3 extra yards, or even go for the first down or whatever. So promising game, just got to continue doing what we were doing this game.
Yeah, and also we've got to remember that this was Brooks's 5th game back. I mean, he missed all last year after opting out, so he might start hitting his stride. One thing I think that's interesting that could be looking forward is when OU brought in Caleb Williams a couple of times. Obviously, the first drive that he was brought in, or the first play, it pretty much killed the drive because he probably came in a little amped up, on the road. And he was coming in and just took his eyes off the ball. And it happens. Maybe I wouldn't have, for the first time, brought him in I guess it's not the first time, but I don't know, bringing him on the road. I guess what I'm thinking is this could be something that they're trying to set up down the road. Remember when Chandler Morris scored against TCU? No, was it TCU? Iowa State in the Big 12 game last year. It was last year. I feel like they're trying to get that going now, where they bring him in and score once, up the middle, or throw a little pass. Obviously they brought him in a second time later in the game, and he made a pass to was it Williams, and so they're trying to get him involved. One thing I think will be interesting to see is, though, he's played in now. So he played in Kansas State. He's played in what, 3 games now, I believe.
Yeah, he played in. He definitely played in Western Carolina
game, and then didn't he come in? I believe he came into another game and scored, or it could have been the Western Carolina game. Either way, whether it's 2 or 3 games, I think it's going to be interesting to see if OU is going to try to preserve his red shirt or not. Maybe the thinking is he won't be here long enough, and with Malachi Nelson coming in behind him, that the red shirt won't really matter. And because Spencer Rattler's most likely, as long as he continues to improve, which I think he will. I mean, he's been playing well, but I think he's going to really start to explode the last half of this year. He might be gone next year. And so Caleb Williams is going to presumably step right in and start playing. and then really the red shirt doesn't matter. So that's just something to watch. I mean, I feel like, you bring him in to win. If he wins you games now, you use him. You don't just try to save him for an extra year, because if he's as good as advertised, he won't be there long enough to need the red shirt. So I think that's something that Lincoln Riley and them are going to try to really start to use down near the goal line at the 1 or 2, for a play or two, and just add another wrinkle to the offense. The offense is starting to open up a little bit more, and I think they're going to get it rolling. But everyone was chanting for Caleb Williams, and I get it, but Rattler is by far the better quarterback right now, and I think that's been very clear after the last weekend.
Yeah, with how this offense operates right now, I think Spencer's the best to operate the offense. He obviously knows it. He knows the person a little bit better. But to update on how many games Caleb's played in, he has played in 3. He played in Tulane, Western Carolina, and then this weekend against Kansas State. If I remember correctly, the redshirt rule is 3 games to keep your redshirt, I believe. So if he 4 games, so he has 1 more game he can play. If he plays another one after that, the red shirt is gone for the year. So, like you said, if he can add an element, kind of referring to a professional team. I know the 49ers have been doing it a lot with Trey Lance. If Caleb can add a different element where he's a running threat into the red zone situation, and obviously he's a good passer, why not? Like you said, this guy's talented enough, and how we recruit at the quarterback position, he's not going to be here long enough to need the red shirt. So might as well do away with it if he can add to this offense. So we'll see how that turns out for the rest of the season. But I think, this, some people may disagree, but I think this game was great for the Sooners, especially going into Red River. The offense looked much better. The defense still looks good. Hopefully we can get I don't recall where Woody's injury is. I don't know if you remember, but hopefully if he's able to come back, he can come back, because he'll be big for the defense next week.
Yeah, you're talking about Woody Washington. Sorry, I broke up there for a little bit. Yeah, I think I remember seeing that he is working his way back for this upcoming game against Texas. That's been the plan. Whether that's changed or not, I'm not sure. I know Redmond is going to be out for, I think they're holding him out till the TCU game. So the week after the Texas game. And then also another one is, I noticed, I'm trying to think. Now I'm blanking. Who started for Broyle, or Broyle started for him?
DTY.
Yeah, DTY. I didn't realize that he was actually injured and held him out. I hope that's just a short-term injury. Broyles is not bad, but we can definitely tell that there's a little bit of a separation of DTY and Broyles. Once this secondary can get going a little bit with DTY back and Woody Washington, you've got Bowman that's played it now. He's back, and it's going to start forming. We just got to get through Texas, and which I think OU will, and this team's going to gel in the last half of the season really well. And they've been good enough to get by this far. I think the last half you're going to see the best. November football, late October and November is when OU really starts to hit their stride. It's always these early game hiccups. And, this is the best start since, I believe, 2017 was when Baker and OU went in 5-0 against going into Red River and ended up losing that game to Charlie Strong. I believe that was 2017. So we'll see, if they get through Texas, there's no reason why OU won't get better and can win out and go to the playoffs, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it all happens. And with DTY, real quick, before we wrap up, earlier in the week, it was reported that he was likely to play. I think it was kind of a day-to-day situation, and just the day it came to traveling, he didn't get to travel with the team, so probably just more precautionary. So if I were a betting man, I would guess that he definitely travels with the team this weekend to Dallas, and they'll probably just make a decision on if he'll be able to play the day of or the day before the game, just depending on where his injury is. But hopefully he does get to play against Texas because, like you said, there is a noticeable drop off when it's Justin Broyles in his place. And just to quickly touch on it, I know we tweeted about it. Justin Harrington is in the transfer portal. I mean, I don't know how it works at this point. If we can just get him to come back, tomorrow, hopefully, because if DTY is out, I think Harrington would be a good replacement other than Broyles in that situation. But, well, I mean, best of luck to him if he does leave, but hopefully he comes back. I don't know how the transfer portal works at this point since it is a mid-season decision.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I see improvement with the team, and I think they're moving in the right direction. Luckily, OU's been good enough. The talent's been good enough to get them this far. I think the team's just going to take the next step. I think you're going to really start to see Mike Woods and Mims really become a dynamic duo, and Kennedy Brooks is going to establish himself as the true number one running back. And once that happens, the offensive line gels. The sky's the limit for this team. And there's no reason why they don't win the Big 12 this year and just beat Texas next week. But we'll see.
Yep. Tuck Texas week. So hopefully everything goes well for during practice this week. We get some updates on injury. If you've made it this far, you're awesome. I don't know why you guys watch or listen, but thank you so much for doing so. We appreciate it. Make sure to leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about the Kansas State game, pros, cons, whatever you thought. Put it down there because it is always awesome to hear what you guys have to think. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you go hit that subscribe button. It's the end of the video. You can close us out after hitting the subscribe button. It won't hurt our feelings, I promise. So please go ahead and do that and turn on the notification bell so that you know when we post our next video. So the next video will be the preview for the Red River rivalry. Should be coming later this week. So keep tuned in. But yeah, other than that, that's all we have for this time. Thanks for watching.